Setting the particle color in the render tree is really just the process of extracting two attribute colors, the original color and the burn color, and modulating them using a mix shader. I'll start off by applying a throwaway shader to the point cloud. I'll just put a material Fong on there. Opening up the render tree. I'll actually take that Fong shader, I'll take the specular way down, make it really wide and really broad. And of course there's no light in the scene that's working for me, so I'll actually just bring in a light. I'll bring in a point light. Move that over here. Okay, so we get our particles looking something like this. And then I'll bring in an attribute shader. So we've used the color attribute a few times, but now I'm going to use it twice. I'm going to use the first color attribute, if I just create a quick comment on here, to pull in the cigarette color. And the second attribute to pull in the burn color. Oops, I don't want to make a compound out of that. I want to create a comment. There we go. So we have our burn color. And if you remember the rules for compositing colors, if I wanted to have white represent the underlying color as the original color, in this case I want the cigarette color, wherever the burn color is white, I want the cigarette to retain its original color, but wherever the burn color is red, I want it to replace the underlying cigarette color. So to do this, it's pretty straightforward. We would just get a mix node. If I mix these two colors together, we can multiply the burn color by the cigarette color. And white, which is the number 1 in terms of evaluating the maths, multiplied by any color yields the original color. So if I set the mix two colors mode to multiply and the weight to 100%, I'll drive the diffuse on the Fong shader. Let's just roll back to frame 1, so let's move ahead to frame 2. So right now we're not getting anything. If we look in the render tree, we haven't actually set the attribute to point to the right colors. So we're actually pulling in this default white color. The attribute we want to use is the color for the first attribute, cigarette color, and on attribute color 1 we want to use the burn color. So you'll see that the burn color doesn't change anything on the cigarette until we actually start burning away. If I just render, we start to get a burn value at the tip of the cigarette. So that actually looks like it's working out pretty nicely. We could use a few different colors here at the tip to burn the smoke away. Let's have a look at how this effect looks rendered. Back to frame 2 here, and the render looks like it'll take about a couple hundred frames. So I only want this thing to maybe burn to about frame 300. So very simple use of setting colors in the ice tree that you're not necessarily even using in the ice tree, but later on pulling them into the render tree to modulate your colors. So I'm going to save this as my final. And I'll get a render going. I'll make sure I set up the scene options. Go with 300 frames. I'll set up the render pass options with the name burning cigarette. Make sure we're rendering to the appropriate folder. Training project, yes we are, and I'll render from here and open up the scene when we have a final flipbook. So I hope you enjoyed this tutorial. Again, combinations of ice trees and render trees are what make ice and Exercise 7 so very special.